The second thing I want to talk about is, well, we got ourselves a cornered rat.
In terms of the vaccine mandates, I acknowledge that it was a challenging time for people, but they ultimately made their own choices. There was no compulsory vaccination. People made their own choices.
The government is planning to require every single teacher at every level and all support staff who work with children to be vaccinated.
There was no compulsory vaccination.
News Hub can reveal the mandate Chris Hipkins is taking to Cabinet on Monday is a mighty big stick. Every educator who works with a child will have to be vaccinated.
People made their own choices.
I can now confirm that we'll be extending this requirement to large parts of our health and education workforces as well.
There was no compulsory vaccination.
Cabinet's agreed that high-risk workers in the health and disability sector will need to be fully vaccinated by the 1st of December.
People made their own choices.
This includes general practitioners, pharmacists, community health nurses, midwives, paramedics, and all healthcare workers in sites where vulnerable patients are treated, including intensive care units.
There was no compulsory vaccination.
We'll also be including certain non-regulated healthcare workforces, including aged residential care, home and community support services, kaupapa Māori health providers, and non-government organisations that provide health services.
People made their own choices.
Schools and early learning staff and the support people who work with them, who have contact with children and students, will need to be fully vaccinated by the 1st of January 2022.
There was no compulsory vaccination.
That includes home-based educators, all those who support people in our schools and early learning services, such as teacher aides, administration and maintenance staff, and contractors.
People made their own choices.
Secondary schools in Kura will also be required to keep a COVID-19 vaccination register of their students.
There was no compulsory vaccination.
Students that don't produce evidence of vaccination will be considered unvaccinated.
People made their own choices.
What will the ramifications be for teachers or those in the health workforce who choose not to be vaccinated?
Ultimately, in the health workforce, they will not be able to work in those roles.
There was no compulsory vaccination.
In the education workforce, from next year, they won't be able to work in those roles.
People made their own choices.
So just let all that sink in, folks. Chippy. That was then, and this is now.
The Mike Hosking Breakfast.
Well, I mean, as I said, the Royal Commission themselves have said that we've answered every question.
Yeah, but I don't know what those questions are. I don't know whether Illingworth's worth a pinch of salt. I wouldn't have a clue because no one can see it.
But all of that is going to be public information.
Yeah, but it's not at the moment. And there's no point.
Well,
there's no point saying it'll be made public, and then with the benefit of hindsight, we can go, well, hold on, they didn't ask this, and you didn't say this, and we wouldn't mind another go. Why can't we just see it? The British system, for example, you get to see what's going on. Publicly elected officials get to be held to account publicly.
Well, that's not been New Zealand's past practice. No Royal Commission has ever held public hearings involving ministers before.
That's not been New Zealand's past practice. All right, so he's slippery as there because he's a cornered rat, isn't he? He's a cornered rat. I reckon the sausage roll muncher from Upper Hutt does have a few questions to answer that maybe weren't asked of him in the first Patsy Royal Commission. So eloquently laid out here by my colleague Pete Williams.
Here's what I would really like to know, Mr. Hipkins. When the government approved the Pfizer vaccine in February of 2021, were you, as the COVID-19 response minister, aware that, 1, the duration of vaccine protection was not established beyond 2 months, 2, that there was limited evidence of protection against severe disease, 3, that there was no long-term safety follow-up information, and 4, that prevention of disease transmission had not been established by that stage. Because you see, Mr. Hipkins, on the 10th of February 2021, you were told in writing by Ashley Bloomfield, the Director General of Health, that, quote, we do not yet have conclusive evidence on the effectiveness of the Pfizer vaccine at preventing or reducing transmission to be confident of the public health value of this vaccination beyond the individual level. So, unlike testing, which had a clear public health benefit, vaccination at this point in time is expected to reduce risk through a reduction in the likelihood of severity of disease and onward transmission. This may change as more evidence becomes available. However, at this time, mandatory vaccination is unlikely to be a justified limitation of the right to refuse medical treatment under Section 11 of the Bill of Rights Act, unquote. You see, there is no conspiracy theory here, Mr. Hipkins. These are facts. The MedSafe Group manager Chris James wrote to Pfizer Australia on January the 28th, 2021, and said, quote, "Having reviewed the information supplied in your initial application and in your further responses, I am not satisfied that I should give my consent to the distribution of the product," unquote. But MedSafe moved the application for approval onto the still anonymous members of the Medicines Assessment Advisory Committee, the MAAC. That committee did not undertake any further testing or evaluation of the Pfizer product, but on February the 3rd, 2021, wrote back to MedSafe saying, quote, "It has recommended that you grant provisional consent to the distribution of the following medicine, Comirnaty," which is the COVID-19 mRNA vaccine. Only a week later, remember, Ashley Bloomfield advised Chris Hipkins that mandatory vaccination was unlikely to be justified under the Bill of Rights Act because there was just not enough information about either the safety or effectiveness of the vaccine. Yet the following May, only 3 months later, the COVID-19 Public Health Response Vaccinations Order 2021 came into force. Chris Hipkins and Jacinda Ardern knew that the Pfizer product was not going to make a lot of difference to the health of New Zealanders because MedSafe and the Director General of Health had already told them so. But they still insisted on mandatory vaccinations if you wanted unfettered access to most aspects of life in New Zealand during 2021 and 2022. That's why both Chris Hipkins and Jacinda Ardern need to appear at the Royal Commission.
Absolutely. But let's go back to the Hosking interview.
When they said that they wanted to do a hearing again, to basically repeat the episode, they said that they were going to ask exactly the same questions and that there wasn't any further information they needed.
They were going to ask him exactly the same questions and that there were no new questions to ask him. Well, I struggle with that because I know that the commissioners had this, the People's Position, the book, which has sold over 4,000 copies. And, did we use the blue to make it look like a government document? Oh, that's dangerous. Yeah, that's how the media reported it. They didn't ask any questions about what this People's Position contains, which is dynamite, kryptonite to someone like Christopher Hipkins.
Did you coalesce with Robertson and Verrill and Ardern to make this sort of a collective decision?
We had representatives in common who, corresponded with the Royal Commission, but each of us individually briefed that representative.
Who's the representative?
Well, at the moment, it's been Denton's.
Denton's, okay, the law firm Denton's. This from True Stories from the New Zealand Health Forum, Linda Wharton, posted on X Friday. Linda tells us that Denton's is a leading specialised health law practice in New Zealand. The firm advises a diverse range of clients in the health sector, including pharmaceutical companies and regulatory bodies. Denton's has experience acting on behalf of pharmaceutical suppliers in contract negotiations with Pharmac, the government department responsible for funding drug contracts in New Zealand. Denton's global and New Zealand health law practices include advising overseas pharmaceutical companies on clinical trial agreements, indemnity arrangements, and commercialization of novel pharmaceutical ingredients. Globally, Denton's pharmaceutical and medical device litigation practice handles product liability compliance and regulatory issues for the sciences or life sciences companies, which could include vaccine manufacturers but no New Zealand-specific cases involving Pfizer are mentioned. This is the choice of the law firm for all four of these politicians. With its extensive background in health law, pharmaceutical contracting with Pharmac, leads Linda, she says, to the obvious question: is the embargoed New Zealand Pfizer contract behind their refusal to front the New Zealand public? So you go onto the Denton site for New Zealand and the Our People menu, and who's there? Oh, wait on, I recognise that name. Linda Clark. Linda Clark. Also used to work for RNZ. Here's what researcher Nadine Connick told us about the Pfizer contract about a week ago.
The Ombudsman went to the Minister of Health, Minister of Finance, Minister for COVID-19 response, and like I said, Pfizer itself. And they all put in their own views on what the release of the contract and these agreements might have on them, I guess individually, but also collectively. We haven't been able to get that information, of course. Every time we do an OIA for anything related to the vaccine contract or indemnity, it is refused under a multitude of reasons, but most of them capture commercial sensitivity. But the summary statement was supposed to address like confidentiality commitments, indemnities, exclusions from liability, warranties, safety and efficacy, the donations to other nations that we were allowed to pass on as a third party, any clauses relating to supply and obligations to purchase. And there were people that were also wanting to ask about the total cost of the financial liabilities that the government signed off on. So, you know, what were the estimates by Treasury at the time of what we might have to pay, and what did the Minister of Finance have to do in his assessment to be happy that we could fulfil that, and particularly the ACC could fulfil that, given that Bell Gully warned that there was some risk that ACC would not be able to fulfil the indemnity. But the summary statement, it really just danced around all the non-disclosure limitations and a whole lot of politicised word salad, basically, and didn't really give much away.
So the Pfizer contract, I think we're getting warm.
Who's the representative?
Well, at the moment, it's been Denton's.
Yep, we got us a cornered rat, folks.
So was it Denton's who advised you not to appear publicly, or did you advise them?
Well, the thing is, you're misrepresenting my position, Mike. I have appeared before the Commission.
You've not appeared publicly before the Commission.
Well, I have answered all of the Commission's
I'm not saying
questions.
that. I've said you have not appeared publicly before the Commission. Did they advise you not to appear publicly, Denton's?
I indicated to the Commission that I was very happy to cooperate with the requests for information, and I have done that.
Did Denton's advise you not to appear publicly?
Well, one of the things that Denton's did raise with us, they raised several issues. One was that, no ministers had previously done this, and that it would create a precedent if we did so. The second thing they raised was concerns about the fact that people who had already appeared publicly before the Royal Commission had been the subject of significant abuse, and that is a concern that the Royal Commission themselves, have acknowledged in the decision that they took yesterday.
So the spin doctors told you not to appear publicly, and you went, thanks very much, I'll take that advice.
No, I don't think that's correct.
Now, I think it's on the commissioners. Here they are. It's on the commissioners to tell us why you asked Christopher Hipkins the same questions, and only the same questions you asked him not you, but the previous commissioners asked him in the first commission of inquiry, phase 1. Why did you only ask him those questions when you had the people's position, you had the information? There is stuff in there that you have to ask about. So now it's on the commissioners, Grant Illingworth, KC number 1, to come out and tell us if Hipkins is telling the truth. And if he is, why did you ignore all that information? It's crucial information, life and death information. And you ignored it?
Well, at the moment, it's been Denton's.
He really let it slip. Denton's, right? Really let it slip. Hosking got him a good one there, I got to say. He let his guard down and he let it out, and you could hear it in the voice. He knew what he had said. Okay, so these spineless, backboneless types, more than ever, need to face the music. Where do they sit on the coward scale? I saw a meme, coward 19. I like that one. All of them should be facing the music, but I'm singling you out right now, Christopher Hipkins, because you were the COVID-19 minister and you are leading a political party who hope, I would imagine, to be, but you won't be, because you're done to be elected next year. I'm going to fixate on you here. But it's too late, really, because already you are a cornered rat. Keep digging, Chrissy. Make my day. Because you know now, you are a cornered rat. Talk soon.